Guys, welcome to Encounter Youth Online. For those of you who know us, you'll already know that I'm Abz and this is my husband Kunle. We typically meet in the Encounter Church Coffee Lounge on a Sunday morning, just following after praise and worship and some notices in the main church. So what we do is a bit shorter downstairs, about 40 minutes. So that's what we'll be aiming for today as well. If you are not normally with us, if you don't normally see us at Encounter Church and you've just stumbled across us online, welcome to you too, really special welcome. And we hope that you get a lot out of this today. We're going to encourage you today, guys, to really interact with us in the comments. Don't leave us hanging. That's not very nice. We wouldn't do it to you, so don't do it to us. It also just means that it's different from just going on any stream, because we really want to chat to you. Of course, if you're watching this after we filmed it, that's fine as well. And we're really glad that you've got the opportunity to catch up with us. So today, unlike our usual Sunday sessions where we start with a game and then we get into a bit of discussion around a topic, then we go into the Bible to see what might be relevant to us and how we can apply it to our lives, we're going to go backwards. So we're going to start with the Bible, and we're reading from the book of Esther. However, this story is like, I don't know, nine chapters, something like that. Yeah, it's quite long. The bit that I thought was really important is in chapter 4. It might be 6 chapters. I don't know. I don't have my Bible open.
It's long.
You can find out. It'd be long to read the whole thing to you, so we're going in story mode. But I'd still encourage you, if you grab a piece of pen and paper or maybe your phone, take some notes because there's going to be a quiz afterwards.
Take some notes.
Yeah, and if you are familiar with us, when we meet on Friday as well on Zoom, we have some games and stuff, and if you win, like the person who wins the most games will get an Amazon voucher. And I'm thinking, let's extend this to YouTube.
Why not?
Why not? So you really want to play. You want to play.
Yeah.
Okay. So should we get into the story?
Let's do that.
Cool. So there was once a beautiful girl named Esther. When her father and mother died, Esther's cousin Mordecai brought her up. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
Esther honoured her cousin by obeying him as a good daughter. So just before we get into the next part, actually what it doesn't say here is that in the Bible, the book of Esther doesn't start with Esther at all. It starts with Queen Vashti. I'm just saying that because it might be helpful for you later on. Keep going.
There's a quiz.
So Esther lived in Persia, but Esther was not Persian. She was Jewish. Her ancestors came to Persia as prisoners of war. In Esther's day, many Jews lived in Persia. The king of Persia held a huge banquet for the princess and for princes all over the world. The men ate apart from the women, who were also banqueting with Queen Vashti. The drunken queen ordered Queen Vashti to wear her royal crown and show her beauty. Queen Vashti refused.
Bit mean, isn't it?
To show that ladies should honour their husbands, the king passed a law which took the crown from Vashti. She was no longer queen. Ooh.
Oh no.
The search was made for a new queen. Out of all the beautiful girls in the kingdom, the king chose Esther as his wife. He set the royal crown on her head. Esther did not tell the king that she was Jewish, because her cousin had told her not to. So cousin Mordecai spent his time at the entrance to the palace to hear the news of Esther. One day he overheard 2 palace servants planning to murder the king. Mordecai sent a warning which saved the king's life. The servants were hanged, and Mordecai's name was written in the king's record book.
Yeah.
You think it's fair? We'll go into capital punishment another day. Second in command to the king was a rich man called Haman. Everybody bowed when Haman passed by, everybody except one man. As a Jew, Mordecai worshipped only the living God. Haman hated Mordecai so much he decided to kill him, and all the Jews in Persia. That's escalated quickly. How dreadful. Wicked Haman tricked the king into signing a law that at a certain time every Jew in the kingdom would be killed. It was a terrible law. Both Jews and Persians mourned. But remember, God had made Esther queen, and she was a Jewess. I didn't know that was a phrase. Would she keep her secret from the king, or would she risk death to try to save her people? God gave Esther a clever idea. He invited the king and Haman to a banquet. There the king promised her anything she asked. Let the king and Haman come to the banquet. Tomorrow, Esther replied. Then she would tell the king what she wanted. Meanwhile, Haman prepared a huge gallows to hang Mordecai.
That's pretty big.
Huge gallows, it said. That night the king couldn't sleep. Reading the court records, he saw that Mordecai had never been rewarded for saving his life. Next morning, the king asked Haman, "What should be done for the man that the king delights to honour?" Haman was delighted. He thought the king meant him.
What's he done? He hasn't done anything.
You know, if you've got a big head, it doesn't take much. Haman had come to ask the king's permission to hang Mordecai. The gallows were all ready. Now, that could wait. Excitedly, Haman poured out his suggestions. Dress the man in the king's robe and crown. What? Oh, I see. Sit him on the king's horse. Command a royal prince to lead the man through the city for all to see. Hasten and do so for Mordecai the Jew, the king commanded.
Pete.
How do you think Haman felt as he led Mordecai to honor around the city? He hated Mordecai even more than before. Just wait, Haman thought. He'll soon be dead, along with all the other Jews. This guy's a little bit bitter.
I like how he has like a massive receding hairline as well. It's a bit, I don't know, like, is this?
That relevant?
I don't know. I don't know.
think it's relevant. Later that day, Haman and the king arrived at Queen Esther's banquet. "What is your petition?" the king asked. He had not forgotten his promise. Pointing to Haman, Queen Esther told the king all about Haman's wicked plot. "Hang him," the king said. The king passed another law allowing Jews to defend themselves. They were saved. Mordecai became the second in command to the king, and all the Jews rejoiced and gave gifts to one another. Even today, Jewish people remember how God saved them through the beautiful queen, Esther.
Fabulous.
Amazing. So, guys, that's the story.
That's the story.
Yeah?
Fun.
So now comes the quiz. And we're doing the quiz on Kahoot. Now, we have a slight difficulty that we just are going to ignore, in that this has about a 15-second lag between us and you, which means that Kahoot will start running and the question will be asked, but you won't be able to see it. But it gives you 85 seconds and you'll all have the same amount of time. So you guys will just be starting at 70 seconds. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
So, you need to log in on Kahoot.
So the best way to do that is to go to kahoot.it and then enter the game pin that you can see on the screen. So our game pin is 402918. And we're going to wait. We'll give you guys...
A minute.
Sure, 1 minute.
1 minute. Counting down.
No, Ben, that isn't why we always win. We win because we are Bible geniuses.
Oh, right, you need to log in as
I'm
well.
not logging in.
Well, I'm logging in.
Oh, okay. I won't win this time. Because I got the name. Is that you?
Yeah.
Kunle's decisive stalk.
In
In the comments, you can let us know your username so we know who's doing what.
mint now. Another 20 seconds. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, here we go.
Sure. I'm conscious that there are
True,
check.
true.
A lot of people have played it before, but not everyone has. Getting another device.
Undecisive stalk. Don't know why stalk is decisive, but
Yeah, see what that is.
cool. Alright,
A prairie newt just got in there under the wire. Should we get going?
let's get going.
Start.
That's it. Esther.
This is what you should be doing.
What did Esther become? Fair enough. That's a nice and easy one to start off with.
You would say that. You came first.
They've all answered already. They've all answered already. Anything else than they answered already.
What does it make sense? So several people play.
Yeah. And so do the answer. Cool. Good work, guys. Who plans to just This is quiet. This is definitely a grinding. This is a bit way.
Still on top.
Makes sense. Fair enough.
There are some streaks building there.
Wait, which one was it? It was cousin. Fair enough. Sorry. What's the king's name?
What is the king's name? I don't think it actually says this. Obviously, I know because I read the Bible,
Please. King's name is
Elvis wasn't one of the options, funnily enough.
Oh no. Oh.
So lol. Not everything was in the little story I told you, but it's a good guess.
Prairie News.
Coming for you, Prairie Newt. Oh wow, this leaderboard, it's getting close. I think Prairie Newt could do it. Who is Prairie Newt? I'm so confused. But I'm obviously cheering for them because there's no way you would be cheering for me.
I totally no, I wouldn't. Sometimes.
This was not in the story, but I'm going to talk about it later.
No. Wow, fair
Well
enough.
done. It's a good guess. It's a very, round number for doing things.
There's a fantastic.
After 3 days, he rose. All of that.
That's the grind beat again.
Useful sound. Well, everyone got that one. Good, good. Oh, come on, Prairie Newt.
Oh, it's gone. It's that close.
Oh dear. Oh, I can't get onto the screen.
Go
Oh,
on.
I'm there. I'm there. I'm there.
Oof. That's the neck.
I feel like it's getting further. It's the wrong direction.
I don't know. What's his job?
Alright. How many more questions are there? Come on. Answer, guys. How can we move this along? Have to go back again.
We've gone back.
I didn't mean to skip so quickly.
Prairie Newts.
Prairie Newt. Come on.
Wait, what was it?
What was it?
Leading through the city, I think. Oh, Prairie Newt.
Yes.
Can you
Come
imagine? Oh,
Come
dear.
on. Oh, it's probably.
Penultimate question there. This is What's your option?
It's a 50-50 chance, guys.
Oh,
Someone is really just rolling the clock. Do you know you haven't answered?
it's you.
I'm not playing. Yeah. I'd say you're pretty much out of this now.
Can't believe it. That's one
Wow.
way there.
The podium is here. Well done, well done. You did all right. You did have a bit of an advantage.
No.
Well done. Do you reckon it's better?
I have no idea.
I need to make this stop.
You're burying me. Own up now. Coming for you.
Oh,
Good job, guys.
yeah, that was fun. Just me learning how to do this thing.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah, well done. We, yes, not all the questions were covered by the quiz.
Trick questions.
But no, they're still in the Bible. So, you know, the answers are really there for anyone's taking. Right. So why am I talking about Esther today? I didn't really tell you, did I?
No, you didn't.
No. Interesting. So,
Wow.
when I was thinking about youth, just over, you know, what to say today, I just kept getting this verse. Can you go to the next
Yeah,
slide,
I'll
please?
go to the next slide. Let's do that.
Yeah, so I kept getting this verse from Esther chapter 4:14. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. And the main bit in there, quoted time and time again, is for such a time as this. It's the idea that you are where you are for this purpose right now, and there is something that you can only do, and you can only do it now. But as mentioned earlier in the verse, if you remain silent at this time, what Mordecai was saying to Esther is that if she doesn't say anything, then to the king, that potentially, you know, God will still rescue the Jews without her. But then what would she have done? And what would that mean for her? What would that mean for the type of person that she is? What would that mean for her relationship with God? Interestingly, nowhere in the whole book of Esther is God mentioned. Instead, the hand of God, his influence on people, on how they behave, the Jews not wanting to worship anyone other than their God. It didn't even say than God. It just said not wanting to worship anyone else. God is just such an important part of everything that they do and say, that they don't even need to mention him. They just know, they just completely listen to him, and they are where he is. So I wanted us to look a little bit at that today. That what does it mean? What can we learn from Esther and from her story today? So I had 4 lessons. 1, be where God has placed you. 2, keep good friends and people around you who will give you good advice. 3, put others before yourself. And 4, pray about everything. So I'm going to have to go through these quite quickly, and I always intended to. So the first one is be where God has placed you. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're at home. We're all at home. God has placed us at home. That's not unlikely to change for a little while. But where you are physically and where you are emotionally can interact, and they can be different. And I think that the way that Ephesians 5 summarizes this, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. So some people also translate that as the days are numbered, time passes like sand. You know what I mean? So the idea that really where you are right now is really important, but also how you use where you are right now. So not just being there physically in your house, but also being able to be in communication with God, being open to him, being emotionally present is really important. Cool.
Yeah.
Next. Esther was willing to risk her life for other people. So when we talk about putting others first, that's kind of like the ultimate, Jesus did it for us. It's what we're asked to do. Put other people in front of ourselves. And you really hear this in that where she was asked to step out and speak to the king. If I read it actually from Esther, which I could have prepared slightly sooner, you hear in that story that she'd found great favor with the king, but she wasn't allowed to speak to the king unless the king asked for her. So even just deciding to try and speak to the king is something that she could get killed for, let alone asking him to spare her because she's a Jew. I mean, she's a Jew. He doesn't know that. Maybe that would be an issue. The king is Persian. She doesn't know how the king's going to receive this. But she decides in that time to put others first, to put the nation of Jewish people ahead of her. And that's really similar to the way that Jesus asks us to be. He says that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So we can translate this in loads of different ways, but one of the ways that Paul says it in the letter to the Philippians is do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others. Or some people translate that as rather prefer others to yourself. So you put yourself back and you put others in front of you. And that can be as simple as letting someone ahead of you in the queue, if you eventually do make it out to Asda. Or it can be, just like praying for other people's needs before your own. It can be looking around in your house for how you can serve other people before trying to work out how you can entertain yourself. And maybe, just maybe, God uses that to help you feel more valuable in your time as well, because God's gracious like that. Sometimes we are serving people and we get something out of it as well, which is great. Move on. And then keep good friends and people who can advise you well. So Esther listened to Mordecai. The first time she does this is by not telling the king that she's Jewish. And she also, it says in the Bible that she really respected Mordecai like a father. And actually, even her whole way that she acted towards him, the way that she honored him, that's really good. Like, if you're able to honor people, then they'll be on your side as well. And you can have a lot more, there's a word, really, integrity that way. There we go. That's the word. That's the word. Esther listened to the king's attendants. Also, what you missed in my really quick version is that when Esther was getting to know the king. She was actually one of loads of really pretty girls that had been chosen, and they would all get turns, kind of like this TV show called The Bachelor that I'm ashamed that I know anything about. Basically, the king's there in one place and all these women are there in another place, and they get to go on dates with the king every now and then. So Esther listened to the king's attendants. They were the people who would walk her from the house over to the king. And they said the sort of stuff that the king likes to talk about, how the king prefers it when people behave. And Esther listened. Like, it's quite simple. But if people are going to advise you, listen, and maybe it will help you out. The king preferred her. Everyone else preferred her to all the other really pretty women. And she got to be the queen. So there's a slightly less 21st century lesson for us.
I mean, if The Bachelor's still around, then it's relevant today.
It's problematic, but relevant. Okay, so the king listened to Mordecai. So this is crucial, right? People were plotting to kill the king, and he listened. Right, he didn't have to listen. He didn't have to believe Mordecai. There was something about Mordecai that meant that his message, when it was promoted, got listened to. And that's really important because it shows that he had this kind of character, and that also the king was able to listen to good character and decided not to listen to Haman in the end when he remembered something that Mordecai had done before. So that's really important as well, in knowing who not to listen to and who not to keep around. Cool. And lastly, the most important one, pray about everything. Now, I know some of you hear that and you're like, you can't physically pray about absolutely everything. I think you can. Yeah. I think before you start your day, you can already submit everything to God. And when you end your day, you can say, God, whatever's happened that I've not done well, can you fix it? Sort of thing as well. You can do that. God listens. And also, as you're going about things, even, I'm sure some of you know from your parents as well, when you get into the car, you can pray for a safe journey. When you're talking to someone, you can pray that God will give you a word for them. But the reason this really comes up here is that when Esther first found out about what was going to happen to the Jewish people if she didn't step in, that's quite frightening. She was told that they were going to kill loads of Jews, basically. And there was great mourning in Israel. So when Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear so that he would take off his sackcloth, but he didn't accept them. So Esther then summoned some other people and told them that they need to enter into a time of prayer and fasting for 3 days, and that she was going to do the same as well. So later on, when we hear that the king couldn't sleep on the night that he was meant to be trying to kill Mordecai, when we hear that he couldn't sleep and he decided to read, and then he suddenly found out that actually Mordecai had saved his life, that wasn't a coincidence. That was an answer to prayer. Because people had been praying and fasting, actually then the situation got changed. And loads of things happen like that. When we pray, we get wisdom, we get peace, and God actually does things in the background as well. So my fave verse, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, in prayer, petition, and thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And then also, this other one really came up to me, Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So rather than just assuming you know how to solve whatever is going on in your life, or you know how to entertain yourself tomorrow when you're like between lessons in your room and stuff,
or if you're going to school,
or if you've gone into school like Abigail, rather than assuming you know what to do and you know what will be best for you or for the people around you, pray, and maybe God might have some better ideas. Cool.
Right.
Next slide. So this, for me, is why we're doing this whole thing in the first place. So why am I talking about for such a time as this? Why is that important? And the real reason that we're even getting into this is because we've got a lot of time right now. many of us have a lot of time to be alone, to be thinking, and we've been talking about how best to use that time and not waste it. And we've spoken a bit on Friday about the plans that God has for us, and we spoke about that in the Bible study as well, if you were part of that. And we are really talking about the fact that God already has a plan for what you're doing today. And we know this because he tells us multiple times in the Bible, even through how he speaks to other people. So the prophet Jeremiah was actually called by God a long time ago. And most of the book of Jeremiah we read, he's speaking to Israel, just like God's given him all this knowledge about what God's going to do, and he's just sharing it. But this is where God tells him about that. So he says, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I'm too young. So first, before we move on to the next part of the slide that Kunle is very, very, eager to get to, I just want you to know that before, God even formed you, he knew you. He had you fully in mind before he even started putting you together. And whether or not he has appointed you as a prophet to the nations, he has appointed you for something. And actually, until you speak to him about it, you don't know. So that's really important. And here, Jeremiah says, I don't know how to speak. I'm too young. I think some of you might identify with what comes next. But the Lord said to me, do not say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. That's true for all of us, prophet or not. We must go to everyone we are sent to by God, and we should say whatever he commands us to say. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reaches out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over the nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, and to build and to plant. So God will give us what we need to do the things he's appointed for us to do. He gives us everything. Anything, even my ability to just seem to talk seamlessly for a really long time. I don't know where that came from. I'm not sure it's always a good thing, but it definitely, is something that helps me to do all the things that God asks me to do. Cool.
Good.
So, and who knows that you have come to your position in quarantine for such a time as this. Okay? God knows where you are. He put you there. So now we need to be listening so that we know what to do with that. So just before we end, I will be playing a little bit of keyboard. And so that's going to have a little bit of a faff to set up. But you don't need to worry about the faff. Instead, I would encourage you to grab a notepad and a pen, so that you can sit down and maybe write down anything that God's saying to you right now, maybe something that you want to pray into, a gift that you think you have that you've not practiced before. Really be thinking, really be open, because how many times is someone going to tell you you're not allowed to leave the house? Come on, there's something specific about this situation. Cool.
Great. So we're going to set up now, and whilst we're setting up, do that. Think about all those things. We have some tangled wires, so bear with us.
If you could actually see what was going on, honestly. You'll be able to control the screen.
And just one notice, actually. I think Kwesi is going to be posting something very soon on Instagram. Check the Instagram account.
It will also be on YouTube.
Yeah. And it speaks into a lot of these themes that we talked about today. So be looking out for that. Great.
It will be posted as Encounter Youth, by the way. It's just, we already know it's Kwesi.
Yeah. Great.
God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do, yeah. God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do, and I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days, I will love you, God. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God, you reign forever all my days. Hallelujah. Sing it again. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God, you reign forever all my days. Hallelujah, forever all my days. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord, that you reign, that you have created us with the knowledge that we would be here at this time, and you ask us to do things for such a time as this. There are people who need you on the other side of the things that you want us to do. There are people who will benefit from the things that you've asked of us. So, Lord, would we just be open to that? Would we be open to you and really make the most of this time, where we're at home and with our family, or at school with not that many people? Let them know that you are carrying us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So thank you for joining us here today. Continue to follow us at Encounter Youth UK on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you don't have access to those things, you can always check out our website, encounterchurch.uk/youth. Everything that gets posted anywhere else also gets a link on there, so you can find it on YouTube as well. I think that's it. We've got so much going on this week, and we look forward to being with you. Cool. So check it out. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. I don't know how to end this. I should have cued ending it before I said that.
End stream.
End stream.